and welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood, the channel where I take you back in time to show you the movies, shows, and actors that have faded over the years. With the coronation of King Charles III of England upon us, I thought I would go back and revisit some of the depictions of royal succession in Hollywood that have come out over the years. I must say, Hollywood knows nothing about how actual succession works in monarchy. In fact, Hollywood doesn't seem to know much about how monarchy works in general. It would take too long to go over everything, but let's just hit a few highlights in both classic and modern Hollywood. Let's start with succession. In most Hollywood depictions, the monarch is not the monarch until crowned. But this has not been the case for several hundred years in most countries. In England, for example, the practice was done away with in 1272, which was long before the story of The Prince and the Pauper takes place. Granted, the animated version of the Mark Twain classic from 1990 is not historically accurate by any stretch of the imagination, such as the idea that they were eating pizza and ice cream in 16th century England. Yeah. Here, Mickey switches places with the prince and is nearly crowned in his place. However, after the king's death, he is repeatedly called prince up to the coronation, which happened immediately. No. The coronation for that particular prince was done a month after his father's death, not a day. But then, what can you expect from a movie that opens with, "For many years England was ruled by a wise and good king, and the people flourished and were very happy," to describe the final years of the reign of Henry VIII. Yeah, that king. I could probably do a whole video on the historic issues with films involving royalty and Mickey Mouse, such as the fact that a princess never ruled France. But The Three Musketeers from 2005 was another movie that had a hard time with historic facts. Like when the Musketeers crashed an opera that premiered in New York 64 years after the Musketeers were disbanded. That and the fact that Princess Minnie and her lady-in-waiting were eating takeout in the royal carriage. A more modern example, also from Disney, but not starring the mouse, though they equally did not know how succession works, was The Princess Diaries from the 2000s, starring Anne Hathaway as the American heir to a European throne and Julie Andrews as her regal grandmother. Here, Queen Clarice is trying to train the young princess to take her place, ruling the mythical country of Genovia. The thing is, she just found out she was a princess. Here's the problem. While not stated, it is implied that Clarice married into the royal family, which in that case, once her husband died, she would become the Queen Dowager or the Queen Mother, not the reigning monarch. For an example, look at any British king since the 1830s. They all outlived their wives, but not one of their queens stayed on the throne. In the 2009 film The Young Victoria, there's a scene where Victoria, brilliantly played by Emily Blunt, meets with her aunt, the previous queen, to get advice on how to deal with a political problem. Not sure if that really happened, but the opportunity was there. You might argue that their heirs weren't ready, but there have been cases such as Edward IV of England and Christina of Sweden, who were crowned as children and were monarchs in their own right, even as the former queens lived. They did not, like Mia, live under the rule of an elder while the throne was kept at arm's length until they were 21. Genovia has some very strange rules when it comes to monarchy. Some movies at least try to get it right. Most fail, but they try. The Young Victoria is mostly accurate if you overlook a few embellishments for the sake of drama. However, they say at the beginning that Victoria took the throne because she was the only surviving child of her father and his 3 brothers. This is both a simplified truth and completely misleading. Victoria's uncle, King William IV, was the third son of King George III. His oldest brother was George IV, who ruled after their father. George's only child was Princess Charlotte of Wales, who died at the age of 21. With no surviving children, the crown passed to his younger brother, in this case the third son, as the second son had previously died childless. After William IV, the next in line was Victoria's father, but he died while she was a baby, so she took his spot. Once she took the throne, the line of succession would have continued with 3 more uncles and at least 3 cousins, not to mention 4 surviving aunts. One might have assumed that she would have been passed over as a woman in favor of one of her uncles or a male cousin. But by birthright, she was next in line, so the throne passed to her. This is why the sequel of Coming to America is so annoying to me, because the main plot is about 3 legitimate princesses being passed over for an illegitimate American just because he's male. And this movie takes place in 2021. A similar situation arises in 1991's King Ralph, which was based on the idea that a freak accident took out the royal family and passed the crown of England to an American lounge singer played by John Goodman. The film has its good points, predominantly that it features the great Peter O'Toole, but I didn't care for the way the new king snuck out to go to a strip club. However, by the rules of British monarchy, Ralph was not eligible to inherit without an act of parliament, who would have gone with just about anyone else. You see, Ralph was descended from an illegitimate line, which started when his royal grandfather had a fling with a waitress. To be in line for the throne, your parents had to be married at the time of your birth. Why do you think Henry VIII rushed to marry Anne Boleyn even before his first marriage was dissolved? The subject of royal affairs comes up later in King Ralph when his chosen bride, more on that later, and her family are shocked to discover that he had been seeing another woman before they met. The idea of the king having a mistress is not new, not even close to being new. For almost as long as there has been a united England, there have been mistresses for the King of England and France, Spain, Sweden. But I digress. However, in the movie, the King of Finland is not only horrified that the man his daughter just met had previously been photographed with another woman, but that woman had danced with the king at a party thrown for his state visit. Yeah, I'm not seeing why that would jeopardize the courtship between King Ralph and Princess Anna. You know what would jeopardize things? The fact that Ralph wasn't interested. In the history of monarchy, I don't know of a single time a king was forced to marry against his will. In fact, Henry VIII killed people for saying he should have stayed in a marriage he was already in. Okay, there was more to it than that, but that's an issue for a different channel. Now, about Ralph having a chosen bride rather than the common girl he liked. This is what is known as an arranged marriage, something that never happens to a king. They might marry for political reasons or to ensure their heirs are raised in a certain faith, but the king always has a say on who he marries. This is true even today, which is why both William and Harry got Queen Elizabeth's approval before proposing. This is one thing The Crown from 2016 got right when Princess Margaret had to get her sister's permission when she wanted to enter a serious relationship with Peter Townsend. History and Hollywood differ as to how it played out after that, but the asking permission part was accurate. While modern royals like Prince William had more freedom in choosing their spouse, this was not the case for much of history, and not just for royalty. Watch Fiddler on the Roof if you don't believe me. This is why Mulan 2 from 2004 drives me crazy. The first song in the 1998 original Mulan is about the title character preparing to meet the matchmaker. Why did a girl want to impress the matchmaker? To get a good husband that she will choose for them. This is an arranged marriage. In the second film, Mulan is not only shocked that the princesses are entering arranged marriage, but she said that she could never go through with that. Um, what about the first movie? Remember the whole tea with the cricket scene? That was for an arranged marriage that she was willing to enter. And why would she have been so surprised that this would be happening with royalty? At that time, a girl was lucky if her opinion was considered when entering a royal marriage. Queen Victoria was able to choose her own match from a selection of suitable candidates because she was the monarch. Others weren't so lucky. Many princesses were engaged as children and grew up knowing who they would marry. Catherine of Aragon was engaged at the age of 4 and married by proxy at 14. Her daughter, Mary I, was engaged at the age of 2 to the newborn Prince of France. But that contract was cancelled a few years later, so it never got to marriage. I think it's safe to say that the potential couple in that case had no say in the matter. This was the norm. No one was shocked at the time that a child or a baby was engaged. That's just how it worked. I could probably go on another hour covering a dozen more films, but I think you get the point that Hollywood in general is about drama, not history. Entertainment doesn't like to be brought down with things like facts and logic. Of course, I enjoy 80s action movies, and they are not exactly known for following the laws of physics. Some things are just for fun. The trick is knowing what is truth and what is fantasy. Thanks for watching. What's your favorite movie about a monarch? Is it one I mentioned or something else? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, and I will catch up with you next time.